Welcome to episode 7, and we are going to be talking about nebulizing. This is a podcast I've been waiting for. There's lots of information to share, so I'm excited to share this fantastic healing modality with all of you. But first, Dad, can you explain what nebulizing is?
Nebulizing is a way that has been used for decades as far as an alternative delivery system of medication. Asthmatics have used nebulizing in children, but also in adults for eons because often you can't get children to swallow pills or drink things and that type of thing. But yet it was realized that using a nebulizer, you could actually allow a child to, through their mouth and through their nose, get the delivery of a necessary medication to help their lungs for asthma. And so from that, of course, has grown, in sort of then the alternative field and biological medicine field, the idea that nebulizing is something that we can also deliver, medications of many varieties that will support the sinus. So, I've used it for years and years, but more acutely with COVID, it became very evident that with so many respiratory type problems, and especially people who had lost their sense of smell and taste, that maybe there was something that we could do with nebulizing. So, in addition to the standard aspect that one would tend to think about using a mask with nebulizing, as opposed to the oral delivery, which was more just a tube that you put in their mouth and would deliver it to their lung. The aspect of using a mask with different medications in a little cup was able to deliver positive benefits as far as a cold, a flu, COVID, sinus problems, etc. So that really is the background. But from that have come, as we'll talk about, so many other potential uses and so many other potential benefits from my personal experience of using it with now hundreds of patients.
Okay. So for those of you that are wondering what a nebulizer is, it's just like a little box that plugs into the wall and it has a tube and the tube goes into a medicine cup and the medicine cup goes to like an oxygen mask type thing, like a CPR mask. And all you do is you turn it on and it's going to deliver the medicine. So I've had a lot of people ask me like, what is it? And so you can find it like in Canada. You can find it at Drug Mart, or you can find it on Amazon. They're about $60 to $80, depending on what you get. The one that I recommend, based on my experience, is the one that has the little box because they have some that looks like it's like a portable one. But I haven't had much success with that one. So just something to keep in mind. So why would somebody want to start nebulizing, Dad?
Anybody who's had any type of a history of chronic sinus problems, who gets repeated colds or flus through the year, those became the obvious ones, or they are the obvious ones that one would do it, because what it does when you have an acute cold and you have a lot of congestion, excuse me, that the body can't clear. When we nebulize something, we can actually deliver medications directly to that mucosa in your sinuses, in your nose. And as a result of that, you get a more rapid response than if you're swallowing a pill that has to go through your whole digestive system, go through your blood system, then come back to the sinuses. So it's almost an immediate system for delivering a medication to treat an acute problem. But from that, of course, has evolved many other things.
Such as?
So the benefits, surprisingly, and I was surprised because it's the feedback that I've got from patients, and it's the reason now that it's become part of now the basic treatment guideline that I recommended for everybody for a 30-day trial, just to sort of see what it does. Because what ended up happening is when patients, who I started off doing nebulizing because of some sinus or some congestion problem, they started coming back with some interesting stories such that the person's blood pressure improved and they got off high blood pressure medicine. A person who had 20 years of ear ringing or tinnitus went away after a few weeks. People who have chronic ear congestion, who feels like they just went swimming and there's water in their ear, that cleared up. People with sore throats that sort of would wake up and they're sort of a raspy type phlegm, that improved. People who had chronic postnasal drip, it started to clear up. But then we had the extra bonus of people who had complained about poor memory, people who had brain fog, people who had trouble focusing, people who had concentration. So, and they were reporting that as a result of doing the nebulizing, these things had improved considerably. So and after I heard, dozens of these types of stories, I decided I think everybody should try it and just try it for 30 days. And then after 30 days, if you think that's not doing anything, then don't do it unless you have an acute reason to do it, like an acute cold or something. But so many people after the 30 days are saying, I'm not stopping it because it really is beneficial for, and they'll list a whole variety of different types of things that I wasn't anticipating would be a positive result from doing the nebulizing. But it is the reason that I do recommend it now as a sort of a, not even a standalone. It's part of the everyday thing, just like sleep and water and your diet and moving your body and getting to bed on time, etc. is now a routine part of what we should be doing on a routine basis.
Right. So just to tell a story in terms of how I started nebulizing is I was actually I actually a few years ago struggled with congestion in my ear and I felt like I was underwater for a long time and I did so many things and I saw all the people and even consulted my dad and I'm like, how do I get this fluid out of my ear? I even went to the doctor and the doctor's like, the fluid's on the inside of your eardrum because I used to use the neti pot a lot and it's basically I pushed water on the inside of my eardrum and it felt like I was underwater all the time and it was really uncomfortable. And so I knew I had that started essentially my lymphatic journey, but probably about I don't know what 6 months ago now, I messaged my dad and I'm like, okay, I'm noticing that I'm having a lot of I wake up with a lot of congestion on my left sinus. And when I go to facial reflexology, I know the left side has to do with spleen and stomach. So to me, that's where I'm like, okay, I'm having some inflammation in my spleen and stomach showing up in my sinus. So that's why I actually started nebulizing. And my dad's like, just try it for 30 days. And I'm like, okay, let's try this out. And so I did. And I was like amazed by the results. I felt so much better. I was waking up and I wasn't congested in the morning. And it's just like, it's so easy and so passive because all you got to do is put the medicine in the cup and away you go. I mean, I think the hardest part is actually deciding what to put in the cup. So, um, what do you put in the cup, Dad? How do you decide what to put inside?
So there's the two things that we recommend for 100% of the patients, regardless of what they put in there. Obviously, is saline. So we use between 3 and 5 mils of saline, and you can buy that individually from Amazon again, or a supplier. And so it's sterilized. You just put it in the cup. And the other thing that we have every single patient put in there is glutathione. A glutathione is a immune support product, if you like, that is in every single cell of the body. Therefore, there isn't any patient who wouldn't benefit from enhancing their glutathione. Glutathione is used therapeutically in many illnesses, Parkinson's disease and cancer and cold and flu and COVID. But it doesn't matter what it is. Even if it's brain fog, somebody can benefit from doing glutathione. So saline and glutathione are the first two things. If there is a history of any type of infection, so if somebody does have had either gets colds or flus or has had chronic sinus problems or chronic ear problems or chronic sore throat problems or has had their tonsils removed and that kind of thing. So in other words, things that look like they are in arena of infection, then colloidal silver is actually a very good thing to nebulize because it also is an incredibly important aspect for the immune system itself. remember that the doses that we're delivering are literally microscopic. It's not like we're taking, a high whack of silver that people say, oh, silver is it's terrible. We want it out of our
Hmm.
teeth along with the mercury. But this is something that on that sort of at the microscopic doses of what it's doing has the benefit of being very antimicrobial. And so it will kill viruses and it will kill fungus and it will kill bacteria and potentially anything else that is in the sinus nasal cavities. In fact, it's well known now that people who've had chronic sinus problems, almost invariably, the problem that's there is fungus, which often doesn't get treated. And until we start doing nebulizing regularly, it's one of the ways that you can ultimately do it. So the saline, glutathione, and in specific cases, we'll use colloidal silver. Now, over and above that, of course, as a physician, I will customize it to the individual patient. If somebody has had the loss of smell because of COVID, we have them nebulizing zinc because we know that zinc is one of the most important nutrients for smell, for what's going on. But for somebody who has, anxiety or some nervous system type issues, there's specific remedies that we can nebulize and all these remedies are obviously in a liquid form, except the one glutathione actually is available, specifically designed by a company called Thera Naturals. That actually, when you put it in the cup in the saline, it immediately dissolves. And so, as a form of delivery of glutathione, there are other companies. There's liquid forms of glutathione also that can be used. So, whatever form that you get it, the biggest thing about what you put in there is what we don't want to put in there is something that doesn't dissolve, because what you'll end up doing is gumming up all your tubing and stuff, and therefore it's not gonna work effectively at all. So they I can't just say, oh, you can put anything in there you want, because that is not a good idea. I have access to a lot of homeopathic remedies. I have access to a lot of herbal remedies that can be nebulized. But to say generically that, oh, anybody and everybody could use this or that really needs to be customized. But you won't go wrong with glutathione. You won't go wrong with using saline. Those of you who are familiar with homeopathy, I use undernumbers a lot. I use phytogens. I use chemotherapies, which are all sort of liquid herbal type things. And we've had great success using those. We also use minerals, trace minerals in the liquid form to try and enhance mineral absorption. So we have quite a variety of different substances that can go into the cup to be nebulized.
Okay. So, what about allergies? Is that something that would be beneficial?
Would be tremendously beneficial, because we know that one of the most the with allergies themselves, one of the more common symptoms are both eye and nasal symptoms, where you have the mucous membranes that are literally leaking. So N-acetylcysteine, which is a substance that you can take orally, but also can be nebulized, would be a good thing to be nebulized in the case of allergies. But we know the bioflavonoids, we know quercetin, hesperitin, obviously vitamin C, the other types of antioxidants would be great to nebulize. Once again, they would need to be in a liquid form so that they can be nebulized safely and effectively, and those products are available.
So, something to also consider is that, like you said already, is that we don't use too much. So, like with the Kaleidos liver, for instance, you only need like 3 to 5 sprays. Like if it's in a spray bottle, or even if you're doing drops, like if you're going to do zinc, you only need like 3 to 5 drops. It's not, because otherwise you're going to be there for a long time nebulizing, because your
Right.
liquid's going to add up, right? So I have a client with a friend who actually has something called SIBO, and something we've been talking about because she's really struggling with her gut health, and she's frustrated, and she's been on antibiotics for a long time, and she saw me nebulizing and on my Instagram story and had lots of questions. So What would you say about people who have specific conditions like SIBO or even cancer or IBS, that sort of thing? Would it be same thing? Would it be like a customizable thing, or is there like a general protocol that they could start with to start healing their insides?
The once again, nobody will go wrong by using just saline and glutathione.
Okay.
When you get into specifics, what becomes the third or fourth substance that you put in the little cup may be more individualized, and maybe that person either talks to a physician or somebody who is familiar with their specific case, that could share with potentially other things that could be put in there. But just a comment about SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It's pretty popular the last 20 years or so. It's not really new. It's been here forever, but it sort of was popularized by one of my students from 20 years ago, who most people who have SIBO have heard about. Alison Seebecker is pretty much, that's been her focus for almost 20 years. But if we look at, there was a podcast by Zach Bush, who is an internist, well-respected physician, very knowledgeable, that I listened to about a year ago, where he talked about, we always talk about small intestinal bacterial overgrowth as a translocation of bacteria from the large intestine back up in a reverse peristalsis aspect, because often these people have lost this, what we call the motor migratory complex, and they don't get good peristaltic movement, moving things in the right direction, and things that move in the wrong direction. But he stated in one of his podcasts that he believed that a lot of SIBO was not much a negative translocation. He felt it was from chronic sinus congestion, ears, etc. And so, I've used that idea. So nebulizing, in my opinion, should be actually one of the most important treatments that anybody with SIBO would be doing on an ongoing basis, to try and support that, because even if you use antibiotics to try and kill things, we're talking in the gut. They can get here, but we can deliver a medicine directly to the sinus that is part of the imbalance of the flora that these SIBO patients are experiencing.
So, is there a proper way to breathe when you're using the nebulizer? So, is it in through the nose, out through the nose, in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the mouth? How would you breathe with the nebulizer on?
It's that it's more of a level of comfort,
Okay.
because a lot of people, when doing the nebulizer, they'll start coughing.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, their nose will start running. They have to sort of stop for a second and blow their nose because it's running. We're opening up channels.
Yep.
So, and if they're getting congested in the back of their throat and coughing, maybe just through their nose or through their mouth. I mean, just wearing the mask over your nose, over your mouth, and just breathing in, and deep breathe as possible, but to your level of comfort. It's not like, oh, you have to breathe through your nose and you have to breathe through your mouth. It's like, breathe through your nose and mouth to your level of comfort, and you'll get the medicine to the area where you want it to get to.
Right. So, is it true that it crosses the blood-brain barrier?
It does, and that's one of the reasons I think I've seen this improvement in the aspects of brain fog and anxiety, and we'll say even some level of mild depression, because we can deliver medications across that blood-brain barrier, because it's literally so close. I mean, the blood-brain barrier, if you think of your frontal sinuses, are just between your eyes, and the blood-brain barrier comes right down there. So it only has to go, and
Right.
a few centimeters, a couple of inches, and we're across that blood-brain barrier, and we're putting it in a form that's not a toxic substance that the brain feels it can't get in, because these medications, if you take them orally, will get into the brain. So we know they'll cross. So now we're putting them in a delivery system that's highly effective and rapid in response.
Right. So, is there a better time of day to do it? Is this kind of the same idea because you're supporting, the lymphatic system in a way? But is there a better time of day, or is it just the answer is whenever you can get it done?
What I've been recommending for people is that, we'll say if you're using from 3 to 5 mils and a couple of 10 drops of this or that, a couple of different medicines, it will take between, let's say, 20-25 minutes to do it. The
Hmm.
ideal thing to do then is at the same time is to put a castor oil pack on. So you're getting lymphatics and
Yeah.
you're both from the nebulizer, but also from the, so normally it's always sort of been recommended that we do that in the evening, but that's just a function of time. But the reality is doing it anytime is better than not doing it. So
Yeah.
is there a better time to do it? I have found that I would say probably 50-50. A lot of people do it first thing in the morning. They find that sort of opens things up and
Hmm.
it brings more oxygen to their brain and they feel that they start their day better, that type of thing. So I said, well, if you're doing it then, put your castor oil pack on at the same time. If you don't have time in the morning, then do it in the evening. And just, you sit down to watch a television program or read a book or whatever you're doing in the evening, do it then. So
Yeah.
I don't feel that there's a more effective time to improve the effectiveness of it. I do have some people. In fact, I just recently a patient with COVID. She was doing it 3 times a day, along with a castor oil pack 3 times a day for acute COVID, and she has a lot
Wow.
of health problems. And so it was obviously she realized the possible effectiveness and the positive response from doing it, which allowed her to get over COVID.
Right. I can definitely testify to how effective this treatment is because I've done a lot of things to help me heal, but I do have to say that nebulizing, like there is a big difference to the point that now I actually have, when clients come in, they do nebulizing with me now. So this week in particular, I had two clients that came in with allergies, and like you said, when you put that on, like it just opened everything up because both of them, struggle with sleep and because they're always congested and just all this gunky stuff. And, it's like, oh, the pollen and, my neck of the woods here in Barrie, apparently we have like a really high pollen count and all that stuff. So like this time of year. So they've really noticed a big difference in their allergies. So that's why I wanted to ask, but just the experience of, just trying it and, but like you said, it opened up the channels. Like they were like liquid. It just opened everything up and they were able to breathe. They're like, oh my gosh, like this feels amazing. Um, the only thing, like for them, because their allergies are so rampant, they do clog up pretty easily. Like one of my clients, she's completely clogged on the left side for a majority of the day. And right now we're only doing it once a week. She hasn't purchased one of her own, so she does it with me. But she's noticing that she's sleeping better and all these wonderful things. So it's amazing. And then just to testify to the morning thing. So for me, that's when I do it. I go for a walk and then I come home and I nebulize, but I don't do a castor oil pack at that time. I actually I do a vagus nerve stimulation. So I actually put an electrode on my ear and I actually just put that on. And I've been noticing so much clarity. I mean, I think the sunshine helps too. It's finally summer here, so it's warm. But that being said, just to, I wake up, I go for a walk, I nebulize and do a vagal nerve stimulation. It's really like the mental clarity, the fog, the congestion that I had, I don't have it anymore. And it's, really starting the day. And so now my kids are like, Mommy, can I try? And sure enough, it works for them too. So it's for everybody. And I have a kid's mask. I have a kid's mask. And so a couple weeks ago, two of my kids came home from school a little bit congested. I had them nebulize, and next thing you know, they're breathing, they're sleeping better. So it's like, it's such an easy treatment, I guess you can say. I guess the most complicated part is getting the nebulizer, like go buy one. And then getting the glutathione and the saline and whatever other medication you want to put in, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, don't get so caught up on what goes in the cup. Just start with something. You know what I mean? Like, in your experience, is glutathione difficult to get? Is this something you can get on Amazon, for instance, or is it something you have to get from a doctor or what?
Nope, you should be able to get it. We use a few different companies here in the States. The one you mentioned, with Coil Silver is a spray. We can get glutathione as a spray. We can get glutathione in a capsule. We can get glutathione in a liquid. So we have access to it. And my patients, either will get it from us or they'll find a source themselves locally. So, and for quite a number of patients in Canada who are doing it. So they're obviously being able to obtain it in Canada also.
Yeah. Okay. So another question I have, because I have a lot of friends that do doTERRA, essential oils. Can I put essential oils in the cup?
I would be very cautious about essential oils. I know, essential oils typically are felt to be topical on the outside. So, eucalyptus and stuff for sinus congestion and that. So I've not recommended specifically essential oils. I have recommended flower essences that we have sometimes, but I have no experience with that. I'm a little leery of that and whether or not they would actually nebulize effectively. Perhaps the company would be the person to ask specifically for that.
Okay. And then I know, like you talked about, like during COVID, nebulizing became popular, and hydrogen peroxide is something that a lot of people have talked about. Is that something you would recommend as well? And knowing also that there are different types of hydrogen peroxide, it's not just the one that you go pick up at the pharmacy that you put on when you have a boo-boo or whatever. Yeah. So do you have anything to say about
I,
that?
Mercola talked about that on his newsletters and became popular. And I think because of the aspect that people could obtain it. You have food grade
Hmm.
hydrogen peroxide, which I hope is what people are using when they do that.
Yes.
Personally, I've
Take
not
note,
used
people.
hydrogen peroxide because of I have access to so many other which I think are more effective remedies. Once again, from homeopathic perspective, from an herbal perspective, specific to that individual patient, that I've not felt a need to do hydrogen peroxide. And what we have done, and every patient seems to get their own required prescription, we'll say, that I found to be high effective. So I have no personal experience with using it. I've had patients who said they've used it and have been happy with it. So I would say it works, but I also have other things that I feel works. So I've not felt a need to have to do hydrogen peroxide.
Okay. Are there any contraindications? So is there anybody that shouldn't nebulize?
I personally don't feel that there's anybody who should nebulize, especially if we're only doing saline and glutathione, since both of
Hmm.
those are in every cell in your body. So you're not introducing something that's going to overdo it. And since glutathione is necessary for a normal immune function, especially in the last 2 years of COVID, everybody keeps talking about immune function and how we can continue to support it in addition to taking things like vitamin B and probiotics and zinc and et cetera, which are all also immune supportive things that we've done throughout COVID.
So, is speaking of the nervous system health and, help reduce stress, is this something that could help with reducing stress and help you with supporting your nervous system?
I don't think there's any doubt that it's one of the more effective treatments for the nervous system, especially since we have remedies that are specific nervous system. I'll call them herbal tonics
Hmm.
that typically have been given orally, but now that we can deliver it via nebulizer and it's so close to the blood-brain barrier, we can get such rapid delivery. And that's why I think we've had good success with a lot of nervous system issues that people have had over time, and doing their 30-day trial of nebulizing. It's up to them to decide whether they indeed think that the 20 minutes that they spend every day is well worth it. And the vast majority of people continue to do it. We're
Hmm.
talking months, in some cases years later, since this has now been a regular part of the recommendation for probably a year and a half, even 2 years.
Right. I can see myself doing it for a while because it's so easy. And,
Yeah.
a big part of something that I talk about with coaching clients is finding the time to actually like slow down and take time for you and be in the moment. And so this is a fantastic opportunity for you to actually like take a time out, do a little self-care, and check in with yourself and see what's going on. So, because it's passive and it's something that you can do in your home, like you don't need to show up to a chiropractor's office or, a doctor's office or massage therapy. This is something you do in the privacy of your own home when you're doing anything, you know, anything that you want that's passive. And so there's so many benefits. Like for me, like honestly, it's like it's a no-brainer. Like I said, I think the hardest part about nebulizing, for I think the biggest barrier I see is getting a hold of one, and just getting the stuff to put in the cup. I think that's the hardest part. So, you can look into it and you're like, yeah, 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 I'll go take care of that. And for sure, like even I remember like even me, like you told me like just start nebulizing. I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, uh-huh. I'll get to that. I'll get to that. And I waited and I waited and I waited just because, finding the time and whatever. And once I did, I was like, why did I wait so long? It's like, it's one of those things. It's like, why did I wait so long to do this? Because I mean, I've tried a lot of things in terms of helping me. Like, we talk about like with sinus pressure, like facial reflexology and doing some acupressure points and all these wonderful things and lymphatic massage, gua sha stuff. There's a lot of things that help. But the fact that to me, this it gets to the source. So I don't remember if you remember. I don't know if you remember the story, Dad. But when you were explaining to me like why should I nebulize and that stuff, I was asking questions. The way you explained it to me is a lot of times when people are trying to heal from disease, think of an iceberg. So a lot of the times, a lot of the treatments, it's treating the iceberg that's above the water. And there's a lot of things that you can do, like massage and all these things, and you can take your medication. But what nebulizing does is it actually addresses the iceberg under the water. And I think that for me was like the aha. And I'm like, oh, okay, because a lot of times we can't get, past the blood-brain barrier, or we can't get past taking supplements every bloody day. It's hard to remember. Like I tell clients all the time, like they need notifications to take their supplements, and it's a lot. Like I know, like we have a client in common, and she takes a lot of stuff, and sometimes it's exhausting, it's just tiring. Like I'm tired of taking stuff, where this is like literally put the drops in the cup, put the thing on your face, and relax. Like really, it's that simple. So if this doesn't convince you to do it, I don't know why you're here. Like there's so many things that you can do, but um yeah, there's a lot of benefits to this one, guys. So just something to it definitely it should be near the top of the list of if we talk about health habits. This is one we highly highly recommend. Is there anything else that you want to add about nebulizing, Dad?
I think what you just said is the key part. I mean, you can convince yourself that maybe it's not for you or not for you, but literally it's an investment, and not only it's not an it's an investment that will pay over and over and over. It's the aspect of the machine doesn't wear out,
Nope.
literally. Yeah, okay, one day, like anything, it potentially made a new one, but after years of using it, the amount of benefit that you will receive health wise is it's a tiny investment for a long-term health gain in ways that you have yet to even appreciate. And certainly as a physician who recommended it to somebody, I mean, the stories I keep hearing from people, week after week after week. Well, I mean, I should be writing them all down and saying these are the benefits, but I shared some of them with you today,
Hmm.
of how you can ultimately benefit. And if nothing else, it makes you stop for 20 minutes to reflect on anything else in your life that just give yourself a break. The proverbial, just came back from Portugal, and I have to say that people over there live a lot less. It appears to me anyway that they takes life a lot less seriously. In fact, our guide said that up in the northern part of Portugal, people, don't die from stress. They die from old age because they just take it, one day at a time. They don't worry so much about things, and that's a huge problem in our whole society. So, make this an enjoyable experience, because the benefits that you ultimately will receive will be innumerable, and you'll be able to share with us in the future the types of benefits that you have received, and in addition to what we've already shared with you today.
Exactly. Absolutely. So it's like it's a little bit of an investment it's a little bit of investment, but there's so much long-term gain. So if long-term health is something that is interest of you, preventative health is of interest of you. You know, like a lot of the things that we talk about, like, you know, we talked about water and sleep and castor oil packs. There's a lot of different things that you can do that'll benefit to you, that can benefit you in the long-term health. But this one, honestly, for me, it's like, yeah, man, like this one, this one's worth it, in my opinion. In my humble
Mhm.
opinion, definitely worth it. Um, so next podcast, Dad, what do you want to talk about? Any
A,
ideas?
a good question. The maybe we should solicit questions from our listeners and ask them for some preferences of things that they would like to hear about or us to talk about or to share our experiences that regarding anything in regards to health, because we're certainly open to talking about anything that potentially could benefit our listeners.
Absolutely. So if you're listening, please write in or message us in any way, shape, or form that you can. Email us. My email is fitimize at admin@fitimize.ca is my email. Dad, what's your email?
DRDWTHOM@AOL.com.
So if you want to email us, it's probably the easiest way to get in touch with us to give us some idea topics because we'd love to hear from you and support you. But an idea that's something that another thing that I did before I started nebulizing was hydrotherapy, and I actually just invested in infrared sauna. So would you mind? We can talk about the differences because you convinced me to get an infrared sauna versus an outdoor barrel sauna. So maybe we can talk about that next time and talk about the differences and the healing benefits of using hydrotherapy to help people heal. How does that sound?
And hydrotherapy comes in many forms because water can be in the form of ice, in the form of
Yes.
vapor, or in the form of liquid. So it's one of the most unique substances on our planet that has so many healing benefits in so many ways. And so, because we can include castor oil in hydrotherapy, obviously
Yep.
nebulizing as a form of
Yes.
hydrotherapy. So hydrotherapy is a very broad topic, that's used and has been used and will continue to be used forever as far as healing properties are concerned.
Right. So maybe we can talk about like the hot cold therapy type thing, cold
Okay.
showers, that sort
Mm-hmm.
of. Let's get more specific because I did a lot of face dunking this week with my connective movement class. We did some breathing with. We did a little bit of Wim Hof, kind of like Wim Hof stuff, a little bit. I don't like to stress people out with the Wim Hof style per se, but I did it in my own style. So we did some breathing with some ice, putting our hands in ice water and the benefits of that. So maybe we can talk about using water to that, like cold water and warm water to that benefit and to help healing. Does that sound good?
Okay.
All
Sounds
right.
great.
Well, thank you so much for the chat, Dad. I always appreciate it. And thank you, listeners, for listening to us and supporting us. We wouldn't be here without you. And we look forward to chatting with you next time.
Bye, everybody.